Hello everybody, Jake, your resident content cowboy here. A ye to the ha. We have a new balance patch inside of Pokemon Unite, and I'm going to tell you all the winners and losers and the things in between that kind of lost or won a little bit but didn't really do much. I'm going to tell you the winners and losers of this balance patch. Come along with me. Alright, let's talk about one of the biggest losers right now. I'm recording this live, by the way, on Twitch, and people wanted to talk about Buzzwole. Let's talk about Buzzwole. Probably the biggest loser of this patch. I mean, there are some arguments for a few Pokemon, right? But I think Buzzwole is without question a huge loser in this patch. Does that mean Buzzwole is terrible? No. They have changed two kind of aspects of Buzzwole, but I think they have really changed the dynamic of this being an insane combo carry Pokemon later in the game. Its early game is still amazing. Buzzwole is still going to be a really good Pokemon, but it has probably lost a lot of its competitive viability because your combo is no longer fully able to just grab, slam, right into smackdown, onto the ground, grab, slam again, and because of that, you don't have the same kind of delete button. You're going to need to fight for even slightly longer to make sure that that combo can work, and you're possibly going to have to use your Unite move. It does not mean Buzzwole is going to be bad, and again, I think it's still very, very good, especially in uncoordinated play. But I think in coordinated play, this is probably a massive hit to Buzzwole. We'll have to see what the teams do with it in the April Cup this weekend. But in general, I think Buzzwole lost a lot this patch. Without question, one of the biggest losers, and it needed it. Even though these buffs don't feel like the craziest thing possible, getting rid of its reset on muscle gauge charge is actually huge. That is a huge change for Buzzwole. We're going to have to see what kind of impact that has in the game, but without question, one of the big losers. Now, on to a winner. Let's talk about a weird winner, okay? This is like a weird almost winner, almost not, kinda. It's a winner, and it's Machamp. I don't know what to say about Machamp, except these buffs feel like not enough, and they're odd. Submission is just a moveset that's not good. It is not a good moveset. It's better now that it's been given a little bit of a buff, but even with a damage buff, you're still running into the same issues that you've always run into with submission. It's nice that it's unstoppable. You can set things up with Machamp because of that, but at the same time, it feels like Machamp probably overall needed more than this. The defense buffs feel light. We'll have to see if it's enough to give it more competitive viability. Obviously, there were some people already playing it competitively, and inside of most games, it was just very mid. It was like mid-champ, and I don't know that really anything changed. I would say it's still mostly mid-champ. Let's talk about another winner in this patch, and this one I actually think is pretty solid. It's Snorlax. Almost said Machamp again. It's Snorlax. Snorlax and Block. Block Snorlax has always been a very viable moveset, although given the amount of EVs that people were running into, more and more you would see people using Heavy Slam Yawn. This block change is big. Not only is the block shield much bigger, like you're able to tank so much more damage with it right now, but you're also able to position yourself a lot better with it with the speed increase. I was shocked with how much I liked this buff. It was already a really solid moveset, and this just gives it even more viability. So big thumbs up from me on the Snorlax buffs. I liked it a lot. I wish maybe there was a little more for Snorlax, but it did get buffs recently, so I think this is also a nice change for this Pokemon. Let's talk about a weird one. Mew Scara. It got a nerf, but did it get a nerf? I don't know, it doesn't seem like it. I gotta say, this seems like the lightest touch of a nerf I maybe have ever seen inside. It's like lowering 1 second cooldown on Dragonite's Hyper Beam, which they did a patch ago. They literally took 1 second off of it. This feels like that. It's not that it's nothing, but it feels like it's almost nothing. I would be shocked if people were playing Mew Scara and they're like, no, actually it's huge. It doesn't seem to be any different because of this very, 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 very minor attack nerf. I just think this is not a big change for Mew Scara at all. It fairly sits in the category. I mean, they changed it. Sort of. Here's a loser from this patch, Mewtwo Y, a Pokemon that is already not going to be able to be played in Master Rank this coming season, or this season that is like literally just like upon us in a couple hours as I'm recording this. And it got a slew of nerfs, which is odd, isn't it? I mean, it already can't be played basically. And you're going to give it a bunch of nerfs. You're going to give it special attack, teleport damage, and a Unite move nerf. Why? I mean, not why? Good, but also why now? Like, why now? What was the point of doing it here? You could have done this. You could have done a lot of this before. And if you would have done these nerfs to Mewtwo X, Mewtwo Y, Zacian, if we would have had these Pokemon nerfed, we would never be having conversations about not having them in ranked, which is just weird. So there you go. A loser of this patch for sure. Mewtwo Y. A winner. Aegislash. Aegislash has won not only because of this patch, but Aegislash has been like teeny tiny buffed a few patches, not in a row, but sort of spread out over the course of like last year, late last year and into this year. Aegislash like keeps creeping up with little buffs here or there, and I'm interested to see if anyone decides to pick this Pokemon up again. I don't think the Iron Head buff is enough, even though I like the Iron Head moveset. I just think too many things in the game do multiple hits of damage, and the window for you to soak up damage is too small. However, Wide Guard, Sacred Sword, even Wide Guard Shadow Claw, I think is looking better and better with every single buff that you give this Pokemon. A big winner in my book. Here's a loser for you. You ready for a loser? I don't know why I said that so mean. Sorry about that. The loser of this patch, another one, is going to be Espeon. Espeon deserved these nerfs. It was far too powerful with the sure hit move, dancing around the battlefield like a maniac. It was getting so much priority in competitive play. They definitely needed to nerf it, but there are other Pokemon they could have nerfed as well. We'll talk about them later. However, I think a very deserved nerf on a sure hit move for Espeon. I don't think it's going to destroy it, but I think it was warranted and it hurts it for sure. All right, here's a winner from this patch, and you're not going to be shocked. It's Umbreon. Umbreon has a battle pass coming out, and while the buffs for Umbreon aren't egregious, it's also a little unexpected in my opinion. I do think the Wish build has been underperforming for quite some time. It's why we've seen so many Snarl nerfs, and Mean Look just got nerfed, so we kind of had this weird between two patches, some Umbreon nerfs, and then now like a slight nerf and mostly buffs. Foul Play got a buff. That's really good for it. And then Wish got a buff. It feels like a big healing choice now. I think now you're going to see Umbreon more often take the role of a supporter inside games. And I'm really interested to see what teams do with that. Without question, a winner of this patch. Umbreon. One of the biggest winners of this patch, in my opinion, is next. It's Gyarados. Gyarados, holy. The change to Waterfall, I'm telling you, it's a revelation. All right, it's everything I've been asking for with this move for so long. Now the bounce change feels like a bit of a nerf to me, but Waterfall is a huge buff. I don't know if I'd run Waterfall. Excuse me, I'd run bounce at this point. I think I might just run Waterfall altogether. I think it's so good. I mean, what an amazing change to put into the game. You're so fast with it. You're able to use it so aggressively. It can chase down squishy Pokemon. It's so good into the EVs. You give yourself a shield. You get a knock up. You cover insane distances. I don't know. I think this is a great patch for Gyarados. One of the biggest winners of the patch, in my opinion. Let's do kind of a, okay, fine. There are two of them. Hoopa and Azumarill. While these are both nice changes to these Pokemon, Hoopa with trick buffs and Azumarill with whirlpool buffs, these are also the lesser used movesets for these Pokemon, so these just feel like nice changes to movesets that don't get as much shine. I actually like when they do things like this. I think they could have been even more aggressive with these two changes, but it's nice. Cooldown reduction on Whirlpool means it's up a lot, and then for Hoopa, Trick just getting a bigger shield is very cool, and increased move speed for a longer duration. All good changes. I will say the reason Hoopa specifically is in sort of this category is I still think Hyperspace Hole is just much better. But I do think these are nice little buffs to movesets that are less often used. All right, let's talk about a big loser, and that's Eligos. Eligos is by no means bad. It is not. However, they nerfed Eligos in multiple ways, making it less effective as sort of a Pokemon that also does damage. So the thing about LD is it was so good for two reasons. Not only because it supported so well, but also because of the incredible amount of damage it did and the incredible amount of lane pressure it has. So its boosted attack slow has been reduced from 30 to 20. Its slow duration from 1.5 seconds to 1 second. Huge changes. Pollen Puff also does less damage to opponents, and it does more, less damage reduction to your allies. And your Unite move is now doing less damage to opponents. In general, they've nerfed the damage portion of Eligos kind of across the board. I mean, you still have Cotton Spore and Leaf Tornado and stuff like that, but a lot of what you were seeing with Eligos has received a damage nerf. Still a strong supporter, but they clearly thought this thing was too oppressive, almost as a supporter and attacker in one, and that's why LD got a lot of nerfs. Another Pokemon to get a nerf that is a loser that we didn't expect, kind of, is Zoroark. I thought Zoroark would maybe get a more holistic, sort of across the board nerf that would affect a little bit of everything. Instead, we saw them focus entirely on the Night Slash build, which means Zoroark is still going to be very powerful. Players may now choose to use Feint Attack. We might still see Night Slash. One thing is for sure, in competitive play, teams are still dominating with Zoroark. High-skilled players with Zoroark are crushing games, and for that reason, it saw a nerf. I'm actually surprised it didn't see more, given how well this Pokemon is doing right now, but I think they're being very cautious with this patch, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. But Zoroark definitely got hurt with the Night Slash nerfs. Let's talk about three winners of this patch. Crustle, because they didn't nerf it, and they kinda buffed it, making it so that its Unite move is basically no longer cancelable. Blastoise and Leafeon. Blastoise and Leafeon really dodged the nerf hammer pretty well right here. They were juking it super hard. You could kind of put Trevenant in this camp as well, right? Pokemon that are just crushing it right now and are easily on the, you know, nerf sort of, what word am I looking for? Assembly line? I'm sure I'm getting this wrong, but you get what I'm saying. There are a lot of Pokemon that could be nerfed, and I'm kind of shocked that Crustle, Blastoise, Leafeon, Trevenant all dodged nerfs and instead are going to survive another patch. Leafeon specifically, when you think of nerfing Espeon and sort of like Nerf's last patch to Umbreon, it's very surprising that Leafeon really like dodged a lot of this. It really is, especially with how good it's doing competitively, how dominant it is early game. I'm a little surprised, but we're gonna have to see. One thing that's interesting about Leafeon is as a solo Pokemon, like in ladder, it's not amazing, you know? But well, it is really good, but most people are not doing super well with it, right? Its win rate's not incredible. However, the other Pokemon like Trev, Blastoise, they're doing very well in both respects. All three of them, four including Crustle, are all doing amazing competitively. But in general, a bunch of Pokemon that you could see get a nerf that really didn't get a nerf. Let's talk about a couple losers, Pokemon that didn't get buffs that probably should. Charizard and T-Tar. For different reasons. Charizard has been just in an unfortunate spot for a long time. We've needed Charizard buffs for quite some time, and we're not seeing Charizard buffs. So that's kind of unfortunate that you still have one Kanto starter, Char, that just really lags behind most of the roster, and it's not getting the love that you would hope it gets. The last buffs it got were really just to negate the muscle band nerfs. I think in general, you could kind of see buffs across the board for Char, and it wouldn't necessarily make it super broken. And then we have Tyranitar. Now that we have Gyarados, as good as it is, that sort of had the same vibe, like the early game bad, late game good. It's just very confusing that we don't have like better buffs for Tyranitar, or buffs more recently. Tyranitar has been struggling for a long time competitively. It's pretty good solo just because you can't get punished as hard, but even still, compared to the rest of the roster, it's just been power crept quite a bit. You could definitely change its Evo levels. You could change how viable it is on its mid-evolution. All of that, I think, would be really reasonable, but for some reason, we've seen no big changes to Tyranitar. My overall thoughts on this patch are that I think this patch and last patch, everything has been really lightly handled. And in some ways that's good, especially when it comes to nerfs, because you don't want things to get gutted and become unplayable. However, when it comes to buffs, I think we're being way too cautious with a lot of the buffs inside of Pokemon Unite. We're not having moments where Pokemon are rising up in, you know, the meta in crazy ways, and you kind of want to see that, especially for things that are just not played very much. I always think back to the Dragapult buff. It made Dragapult really, really good, but it didn't break the game to have Dragapult that good. And I think every patch you have, if you could have a couple Pokemon that walk out of it going from not played at all to really relevant, that would be ideal. And the past couple patches, we have not seen that really at all. I would love to see more aggressive changes to Pokemon that are not being played much at all. But I would love to hear from all of you in the comments. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Let me know what you agreed with, disagree with, what you would like to see changed in the future. I love you, and I'll see you all next time. We did it. We did it, everybody. Hey, you can see my monitor here. Where is it? This one. I fixed it.